restream. That's the main thing. There's that. Oh, that was right on time. Perfect.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And here we are, Rob, for another edition of the New Media Show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Todd. It's great to be back on the show on a new streaming platform.
Yep. And we are on a new streaming platform. And the reason was I couldn't get good video out of restream.io. I couldn't record locally on StreamYard. It seems like all these platforms have taken away the ability to get a quality video recording. And so we're on Riverside, and much kind of to my chagrin.
So, what more specifically did you see was the challenge with Restream?
Everything's great if your bandwidth is just always perfect, because they don't do a local recording. They record
Oh,
everything to the cloud now. So when I look at Restream and I look at
that's the thing
StreamYard,
that
they're using
that's the same thing that StreamYard recently did was
yeah,
pull the combined local recording export.
yeah,
You can still get the separate tracks, but you can't get the combined.
right. So we'll see how this works. Right now it says 8% uploading on my window. Do you have an uploading button in yours?
I
Do you
do,
have
and it's
any
showing 99%, 97% upload. So it actually is tracking the upload.
Yeah, so for me it's not, because
Hmm.
I'm supposed to have 30 up, but it just isn't tracking. Um, so I'm watching the live video output right now, and it's definitely not as good as essentially what I would expect. And what that ends up with being is a real bad video recording. So I need a master video recording that is good. So when I'm traveling, and I guess we'll test this and see how it goes. I think if you've got great bandwidth, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
So to use Restream or StreamYard, but I'm more worried about having a quality video recording, because I was looking at this stuff on YouTube and it was just caca. It was bad.
Yeah, and it's good timing for us to be talking about the Riverside folks, and I'll just jump to that particular line item in our news, is that I guess the Riverside folks raised another $20 million in a new funding round.
30.
Yeah,
30.
30 million, right, correct.
Yeah, 30.
Yep, and they already have 165 employees.
So
Yeah.
where are these? I guess they're spending their money to do this, right? To make sure you get a good video recording.
That's part of their
I
model,
think about
but
the
I
money
guess
they've got, and it just
Well, I guess part of their model is to build out other capabilities. Like they also announced multi-track editing tools built into the platform too, for both audio
yeah.
and video. So I think what we're seeing is kind of a move towards these platforms becoming, adding functional features, right, and making them more capable. So content creators don't have to be transferring files around and using other tools and all this stuff to accomplish what they want to do. And the same thing is happening with the Descript platform too, with Squadcast, where they have the
Right.
integrated tools, so you can do everything right there. And actually, they've started. A lot of these platforms are starting to add the ability to publish directly to the video consumption platforms like a YouTube.
Yeah, it's curious to me,
Mhm.
for sure. But I think the thing that I ever since they got money, they kind of changed as a company. So,
Oh, you're talking
and
about Riverside? Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and
that's going to happen. I mean, once you get up to 165 employees, that's a big company, right?
but it's amazes me they have that much money, and it just goes to show you. I think of what we could do if I had 30 extra $1 million at Blueberry.
Well, and
Jesus,
they raised 35 million in 2022, just a couple of
I
years
know,
ago,
I know. Right before NAB.
right? And then
Oh,
in 2021, they raised 9.5 million on top of that. So they've
that,
just since 2021, they've raised what 60, almost 80 million dollars. So
yeah, yeah. So that's amazing. That's a big number
it
for
is.
amount of money for this product, and it just surprises me that it just to me it's an extraordinary number. It really, really is. But here we are. We're using their platform for a reason this morning. Well, when I'm back in the studio, I don't have to worry about these challenges of getting a quality recording.
Yeah.
Um, and I may have to do some thinking here now again um, on how to get a quality recording when I'm remote. Audio is fine, and and maybe no one gives a shit. Be honest with you, maybe the audio recording and the video recording is good enough, but I'm kind of a perfectionist a little bit.
Well, and that kind of takes us into the big topic we want to talk about is are we all tired of talking about video?
Yes, yes,
Well, that's
indeed.
a very simple answer to that question, but there's a lot of continuing ongoing chatter about the implications of video and some of the things that we've said on this show have kind of raised people's attention here lately. And James Cridlin's getting involved in this conversation as well. And it's an interesting
And
chat. Yeah,
and and in fact, I was wrong last week. Apparently,
apparently, yes.
you can. God, I don't even want to mention these folks anymore.
Well,
You
Todd,
can.
you were actually giving them too much credit that they were going to do it the logical way, but what they've done here is break the models, is what they've done. So,
Oh, they broke it completely.
yeah,
So if I go in and find my listing that I am doing pass through on from Blueberry,
yeah,
my audio listing, and I overwrite and I put video on top of that, then they never ever serve the audio. I knew that
yeah.
part was right. That's why I was saying do too. So I'm still advocating my same solution. Is that you start a second show on Spotify if you want to do video.
Yeah, but they'll actually overwrite your RSS feed.
No, but I'm saying start a second show
Just
and don't overwrite your original show. Start a second show.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know the actual fine details on that. If they associate it with the publisher's name and somehow replace it, if it's the
I don't
same
know.
title of the series, or what the
If
details on the
if I
capabilities
go
are.
over there and create a new podcast and call it the New Media Show video version, which I'm not going to do,
Well, I haven't done it
then
either, so it's just been it just feels like it's too much of a mess over there to even mess with right now until they get their model straightened out.
well, I think what it ultimately, I think the chickens are going to come home to roost on this at some point.
Well,
And
that's
you
another
know,
topic I wanted to talk about too, is there's some folks making some 2025 predictions. So we're kind of in that time period right now too, where people are talking about, well, are are people going to get tired of video and some point next year there's going to be a bunch of layoffs because everybody invested a lot in video and it didn't work out.
or are they
Right.
or will, Google being I think maybe there's some semblance of, reality there in that, we could end up with all of a sudden the major companies saying, we've had enough of this. We're tired. Let's move on. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a time of kind of, I've been saying this for a while, but it's definitely a time of convergence from what people perceive as mainstream media
Yeah.
type content, and I think we're kind of blending these things together, and it's making us kind of uncomfortable because we're calling out shows that have production teams or bigger studios, more like how mainstream media has produced their content over the years, and that's shifting over to the internet side. And it's kind of like confusing. Well, is it a podcast if it's distributed online, if it has a big team behind it, versus what we've all known podcasting to be is kind of an independent medium. Anybody can do it. But are we shifting into a time where it's going to be the full spectrum? Mainstream media is going to be focused on it going forward, and the independent creators either get left behind or there's some way for them to continue to compete. And in some ways, there's some
Well,
evidence that they can continue to compete.
yeah, and continue to compete. And, you know, again, the medium's healthy. A little bit slower in the
Yeah,
number of new folks. But
yeah.
I'm not worried from that perspective, to be honest with you,
Hmm.
um, in that regard. So yeah, I think we're going to be just fine. Um, you know, you look at what we're doing. We're trying to be very diverse, working with new partners. Matter of fact, we announced a new one
Hmm.
this morning,
Hmm.
and then announced a new product on Monday. We announced our podcast AI tools as a standalone product on Monday, so that now you don't have to have a hosting account at Blueberry to be a
I'll be able to
customer, and
use
you're
it.
going to see
Oh, okay.
yeah, and you're going to see more of that from us too. I won't go into too many details, but um, from a business standpoint, I can't be a one trick pony. I have to have more eggs in my basket and more diversified income streams. Um, I have to protect the company at all cost,
Hmm.
and so you'll see next year. Matter of fact, we've already pre-announced one of those products, a new product called Creator Connect,
Hmm.
and you'll notice I said Creator Connect, not Podcaster Connect, but basically a
Yeah.
product that it's going to integrate with Blueberry. That's the main
Yeah.
thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think,
you
Todd,
know,
that's smart because I think increasingly people that are creating content are thinking themselves as creators that have lots of distribution choices, and
yeah,
podcasts is one of them. It's not probably all of them; it's one of them.
but
So,
I saw something, and I had quite a dialogue about it on my tech show.
hmm.
As a matter of fact, I've gotten a huge amount of feedback from it already. I had a basically I saw people on TikTok preparing for the TikTok shutdown. So they're all promoting now, "Hey,
Yeah,
I'm
because
I'm over on
Donald Trump's
Inst."
getting into office and he threatened to shut him down, that kind of thing.
Well, no, he actually has hinted he might save TikTok,
Oh, okay.
but he hasn't really committed.
Hmm.
So, I think chances are 50-50 whether or not he actually, um, if he actually saves TikTok on January. Well, he can't do nothing till the 20th,
Right.
but January 19th is the shutdown day. So
Oh,
now,
oh, it's already
now
set.
think,
Okay.
yeah. So
Boy, that's awfully coincidental that it's the day before the inauguration, right?
so let's just take a comment out of my playbook. What I've been poo-pooed. And a matter of fact, Tom, you poo-pooed me recently. I kind of understand what you said, that the grass is looking mighty green over on some of these sites. Well, I've always said you build your brand at the risk of someone changing their business model. And lo and behold, it wasn't a business model. It was the political winds that are changing the model.
Right.
And with that said, um, if TikTok does get shut down, which I very well think it could be, you have got a whole 150 million people that have been on that platform.
Where are they
Not
going to
all of
go?
them creating content, but a whole bunch of them are and monetize. And guess what?
Yeah.
They're done.
Right.
Their livelihood, their way to make money is gone. So,
Yeah.
I have no illusions. I like TikTok. I like it, but I have no illusions that the Chinese state government is also involved. I have no illusions that they are. It's just the way they are. They are insidious. People may say, Todd, you're crazy, but if you're in China and doing business in China, and the China state comes in and says, you shall do this, and you shall not tell anyone what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and you shall give us this data, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And there's some evidence that has actually happened. And, you wouldn't have the NSA and everyone else saying, essentially, you don't install TikTok on your phone. But at the same point, you've got these competing commercial instruments, YouTube, you've got Instagram, Facebook, and everyone else that want Reels to work. So, those companies would love to see TikTok go away
That's what I was going to
because
say.
billions,
You have to look at who benefits from that,
right.
as having something to do with maybe pushing for it. Right.
So they're pushing for it, even though you don't hear too much. Then you got the government saying this is bad and they're spying.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the creators in the middle and saying, hey, don't take my livelihood away.
Yeah.
And, YouTube and Facebook, they're waving, come over here and we'll give you, some pennies for your creativity. And the advertisers will have to move. So
It's the same thing that happens when
it,
a podcast hosting platform shuts down, right? Who
right,
benefits? All the other podcast hosting platforms.
that's right. So there is a
Yeah.
cause and effect here.
Yeah.
And I don't dare ever fly through Hong Kong. I just don't. I don't ever dare hub through there. As much smack as I've talked about China for so many years
You want to take
on
the
my
risk.
tech show,
Right.
I'm not taking the risk. And the chance of them rolling me up are slim. But I also had an interesting job before, so they might want to roll me up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it goes back again to, all right, where are you building your brand? Now, Todd, we're talking about building on your .com. Well, I'm a podcaster, and guess what? TikTok goes away, no sweat for me.
Yeah.
I'm continuing.
I'm not
I'm
locked
good.
in any way over there. I'm not investing time over
No,
there. Mm-mm.
I'm not. I don't have an issue at all.
Yeah.
Last week, though, we did get some boost, and I missed it. I apologize. And some came in afterwards. Love the idea of split testing. To your point, I think it would require work on both the media host side and the app side to ensure good delivery of all episode artwork correlated downloads or plays related to specific artwork. But I like the idea. Oh yeah, so someone is talking about AB. We talked about AB testing of media within apps and album art and all that stuff, episode art,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2,000 sats from Silas on Linux. He says Blue Sky injecting RSS doesn't seem super unlikely to me because it's not really a platform. Every profile account is its own website. It's like everyone already has an RSS feed, except that Blue Sky protocol isn't JSON based. It's unlikely, but they could take in RSS It doesn't go that much against their model, although I don't think RSS feeds are usually signed. Yeah, most are now. Most of them are HTTPS. Blue
Yeah.
Sky
Yeah.
feeds are signed at standing for authenticated transfer. Oh, plus from testing, we know Blue Sky doesn't derank posts with external links in it. That's the reason I think brands and people are going to it. Again, I think it's just a segment of populations going to it. Being able to use the audience you built somewhere else too, Blue Sky isn't against external stuff, which makes sense.
Not yet.
Yeah.
That's how
Papa HD.
that's how
Yeah,
Twitter
how they
started
all
too. Yeah.
And then 5,000 sats from Papa HD. Hi, Rob. Greetings from Montreal. The frontier between audio and video and podcasting is more and more blurred here too. So we got some feedback from last week's show,
Mhm.
at least even on Boost, and using those new modern podcast apps. We are lit and live, by the way. We're streaming the show,
That's
audio as
great.
well as video on all the major platforms. But so, whatever happens to TikTok doesn't. So I'm not saying that the chances of YouTube's not going to get banned, Facebook's not going to get banned, Spotify's not going to get banned.
Those are all
That ain't
U.S.
happening.
companies. Why? I mean,
Right.
rooted
Right.
U.S. companies.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Spotify's not. Spotify's
That's true.
European country.
But
Can't remember what.
that's from Sweden. So that's part of the
Sweden.
that's a NATO ally.
So
yeah, that's not going to happen.
So, and so, again, I hate to say it this way, don't, and believe me, if TikTok goes away, I'll get some time back. But it still remains the number one place for me to find real news about specific events going on in the world that I don't find anywhere else. I can easily find.
There's
Okay,
a lot
so
of it, Todd. There's a lot of it going on X too. I mean, there's a
but
lot of that.
but at the same time, I can't find reels on X about what's going on in Syria.
No, you
It,
find just regular videos, right? Not
yeah,
not
have you
reels.
seen any mainstream news covering Syria? No, they've been covering this
Right.
CEO shooter.
Right.
So
Oh,
which is,
and all of the UFOs flying over New Jersey, right? That's the other
right,
one.
right.
Yeah. Or
It's
drones or
it's real easy if you guys in New Jersey want to figure out this drone thing.
or
It's called a 12 gauge shotgun.
you can get arrested for that, Todd. So I
In
wouldn't
New
be
Jersey, you can. In
I
New
wouldn't be
Jersey,
advocating for people to shoot down drones. You get arrested for
if
that.
something's over my property,
Like
hovering at a couple 100 feet,
it's illegal to discharge a firearm like that, Todd.
if it's over your property,
Doesn't matter.
okay, well, it depends on the state you live.
Well,
You can't shoot down-
that's certainly true. Yes. Yeah.
You can't shoot airplanes down, though. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Well,
You
that's exactly why they're going to come after you. So
Yeah,
right.
well, if it's dark,
Which all these things are flying around in the dark, right? And they
yeah,
look rather suspicious. I thought it was interesting the other rumor that was flying around that I guess there's some mothership from Iran that has come off the coast, the eastern coast, and they're launching all these drones into the east coast of the U.S. is the new
it's
story.
UFO invasion is what it is,
Right.
over Jersey,
Right. Yeah.
just Jersey.
It's there is certainly something up in the sky, right? I mean, I've seen all the videos. I'm sure you have too.
They're big.
There is something a little bit unusual going on here, but there's also a lot of freaky stuff going around with drones right now. So it's I mean, there's big and small, and now we're talking about flying cars and all this kind of stuff. So the technology has reached a point where we can do a lot of interesting stuff, and there may be a lot of interesting stuff that we don't know about too.
It's going to end up being some college students. That's what it's going to be.
Right. It's a college fraternity prank, right?
So who knows what it's going to be. So,
Yeah.
But
Well, Todd, I saw in Pod News that James Cridlin broke the news about, I guess, a new and improved Apple Podcasts on Android. Did you follow the story?
Yeah, they basically fixed a bug.
Okay. Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, it was, and, and we kinda laughed about it because we knew, we had talked about it internally, and
Yeah.
actually, we had sent messages over um, to the gang over there when they introduced this thing, and, they fixed the PWA setting, is what they did.
Oh, okay.
So now you can actually make it a PWA.
But what's interesting is it bypasses the Google store.
Well, we have a PWA for Blueberry
Right.
podcast stats that you can
Right.
install.
Yeah.
So it's not rocket science, but people aren't used to installing apps that way.
Yeah. It's also
That's
the
why I
same
think
way that the Google podcast app worked, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So yeah.
but it's great.
So if you want to install this on your Android phone, just go to podcast.apple.com in your Chrome browser
Right.
on your Android phone, and you should
Yep.
be able to get it set up.
Yep. And you put an icon right on your phone.
Yep.
It'll act just like an app.
Just like the Google Podcast one did. Right.
That's right. So, here we are, and it's a pretty big deal. Um, the challenge
Well, and
has been
now the next position we should take, Todd, is that Apple should make a native Android
well,
app, right?
we've been saying that for years.
That's the next logical step in this conversation, right?
Yeah. So, a PWA is,
Yes. Yeah.
here's the challenge again. And I think Android users may be a little more adept in installing a PWA than iOS users.
Yeah,
So,
right. Totally. Yeah.
we could see a bump. I'd love to see all of a sudden the Apple Podcast app reach 3, 5, 6, 7% on Android.
Yeah.
That would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it needs to replace at least the stats for Google Podcasts, right?
Yeah.
That would be great because they were actually starting to grow that before they killed it.
Yeah, exactly. They actually had good percentages.
Success equals death, right? Yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of
So
the
there is,
takeaway from that.
and James did put some installation instructions.
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty simple, right?
yeah, very, very simple. And it's basically added to your home screen.
Right.
Very, very simple.
And then choose install.
That's right.
Wow.
But again, you got to be using the Chrome browser
Yes, you
in
do. Yes.
your Android, which you do have options. You don't have to use the Chrome browser in Android, which I do.
That's likely going to be the default browser on Android, I would think. Wouldn't you?
I would think so too.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be.
No, it
but
doesn't. No, you can run probably all of the other browsers, Mozilla,
Yeah.
Firefox, all that, if
But
you choose
I
to.
contend still there's a reason why Google does. Excuse me, why Apple has not done a native app.
They probably
I
can't get a
just
deal done with Google because they don't want to do a deal
well,
with
I
Google.
think
Yeah.
I think those that are in charge over in the what do they call the Apple spaceship? I think Tim
Oh,
Cook is probably saying it'll be a cold day and you know what before we build a native app for Android.
yeah, Todd, it's the same
Because
thing that's currently going on with email between all those big tech behemoths, even Microsoft and Google and Apple, is that their email platforms don't work with each other either. So there's
right,
always been
right,
these kind of like behind the scenes tech wars that have been going on between all these companies. I mean, I used to work for Microsoft, so I saw it firsthand that everybody's trying to undermine everybody else, and it's
yeah.
like, yeah, and it's
They
always
they
bad for the user. That's the problem. Yeah,
they want a reason
yeah,
to give people if you want the Apple Podcast app so bad, buy an iPhone.
right, right.
Don't go out and buy
Pick
an Android.
sides. You got to pick sides,
That's
just like
right.
politics now, Todd. Yeah, you got to pick
Yeah.
sides. Yeah.
Well, we're past the political season. I'm not, I don't talk about any
I don't
politics.
know that we really are, Todd. I think we still have to get
Oh,
to an inauguration first. I don't know.
o-
Yeah, who
okay.
knows?
Well,
Who
again,
knows?
let's let
Yeah,
that go.
let that go.
Um,
Okay, you're tired of it. Right.
just, and thank God I'm not in. I missed the onslaught of everything that you all had to deal with. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's true.
yeah.
Though I don't think we're really done. I think there's a lot more to
No,
come.
okay. Yeah, okay. Keep going,
I'm
Rob. Keep stirring the
I'm
pot here,
not
and
I'm not pushing on details. I'm just saying that the old saying goes, well, I should probably even say this, but the fat lady hasn't entirely sung yet.
yeah. And meanwhile, it's been very interesting for me. We've hired 3 new employees, and
Mhm.
they're here in the Philippines. And
Mm.
it was a very interesting process. And I don't want to go in too much detail, but we used a agency that has facilities where people come in and work, and very modern, beautiful. I toured
Mhm.
it, met the team. They got a doctor on site, and not a doctor, a nurse. An amazing work facility. And we're one of their few American customers. They mostly have Australian companies they work with, but
Mhm.
I was recommended this company from a close friend of mine, Aya, out of Cleveland or
Mhm.
Cincinnati, and the it's I'm impressed. There is a little bit we're trying. What we're really trying to make sure that they understand is our culture, and what I'm kind of calling the blueberry way, and
Mhm.
making sure they understand the blueberry way. And just like any new employee, there's a ramp up period.
Mhm.
Trying to get people. We're giving them homework and what to read and listen to, and including a bunch of podcasts to listen to. And um, but when they get down and get ready to rock and roll, uh, I'm pretty impressed with the output so far. Very, very, very impressed. Um, Not a lot of hand holding up to this point. So,
Hardworking
so
folks, is that what they are?
yeah, very much so.
Mhm.
And they were shocked because we work a 36-hour work week here, and we cut everyone loose Friday at noon.
Mhm.
And right now, I've got them all in an office, and then sometime mid January we'll transition, and we just want them to be collaborative in the early months. And sometime in January, maybe early February, we'll let them just to work from home. They won't have to come to the office anymore. And the um, the best thing I can say is they were just blown away that we would say, okay, we're paying you for 40 hours, but on Friday, you're done at noon. And
Mhm.
that concept just, a matter of fact, even I had to send a special note to the agency. It says, listen, they're not working, but they're getting paid for it. Uh, Completely foreign concept. I
Right.
mean, like they had the management company's like trying to wrap. You mean they don't? You're going to pay them for
Right.
40, but they only have to work 36. I'm like, yes, that's
Todd, are you
and
crazy? What's going on here?
yeah, yeah, and also, um, the way they term it is you get 45 hours, but they get an hour for lunch.
Mm,
So you still
okay.
get 40, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, But it's been interesting. The main thing that I was shocked about was um, the benefits package and insurance in another country, to see those outlays of how much
Mm,
they pay for taxes, and because it's here's a salary, then everything above there's cost plus a fee to the agency. um, I mean, you definitely can go cheaper just going a VA route, but you put yourself at risk with the government if they don't pay all those fees themselves.
right. They can
And
come back after you probably for those,
and I
maybe?
just don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
so it's just like hiring any other employee in the United States. There's overhead above salary.
Yeah.
You pay your portion of Social Security and insurance, and
Oh,
all
really?
that
Wow.
stuff
Okay.
goes along with it. So, and they're pretty pleased about our vacation policy around the holidays too.
I would imagine. Yeah.
So, what did you think about our announcements with Adobe?
Um, I've yet to see a lot of the details about it, so I don't know if you wanted to share more
It,
details
it's
about it.
it's more of a collaboration, and
Mhm.
we basically went. I talked to everybody. I talked to Descript. I talked to all of the major recording platforms, and no one wanted to do a deal. No one wanted to do an integration. They all were on their own, and they didn't want to take my money. Now, here's the crazy part, Rob. Even Riverside, they didn't want to take my money to do an integration. I was willing to write a check to do an integration,
So when you say
and
integration, what does that kind of look like? What could it have
it,
looked like?
what I wanted is you have an experience within Blueberry, either an SDK or a direct link to launch into a recording platform,
Oh, right in the tools. Okay,
right
got it.
into the tools, and no one wanted to do that. And I was like, "Here, take my money." And I still don't understand it. Why that probably would have been $100,000 a year deal,
So is there some
potentially, you know?
some concern, Todd, that they wouldn't be able to give the users the full spectrum of features if they did that kind of of a
No,
deal?
I don't know. So
Mhm.
I said, "Okay, no one wants to do a deal, fine. I'm gonna go out and do a collaboration. I gotta do step 1.
Mhm.
Step 1 is, okay, here, Blueberry hosting customers, you get a better deal than everyone else. You get a 60-day free
Right.
trial
Mhm.
of their platform. I direct link. They have to be a Blueberry hosting customer. They can link to the offer through the dashboard.
Mhm.
And once they get into Adobe, they use Adobe just like they would Adobe Podcast Premium, Adobe Express Premium, just like they would if they had logged in directly at Adobe. There is no integration to bring the media back to us, but it's just basically 60 days. You get to use the product for free. And then we hope that you'll like it and convert. And Adobe's improving the product. I think
Mhm.
they're a good bet that their online platform is going to increase. And if you're doing audio only, it's fantastic. You can invite someone to do an interview.
Mhm.
Um, and so my main goal was to give those brand new podcasters that land into our platform that
Mhm.
may be a little lost on what to use to record.
Mhm.
Here's and we're going to put right for brand new customers. They're going for 30 days. They're going to see a message that says, "Hey, you get a free 60-day trial of Adobe Podcast and Adobe Express Premium. Click here, record your podcast, and then we have some tutorials on how to bring the audio back. And then there's no integration where you click from Adobe, so there is no true integration.
Okay.
It's just a collaboration at this point.
Right,
So if I get
but
enough,
those podcasters can actually record a guest, a
yeah,
remote guest into the tool and then take advantage of the Adobe's noise reduction optimization tools as well? Is that how it works? Okay.
everything. Yep, yep. And they've got a roadmap for that product. They didn't,
Mhm.
of course, disclose to me what that roadmap is, but my main goal is within 60 days, a new podcaster is going to figure out, do they want to use Riverside? Do they want to use Descript? Do they want to use Hindenburg?
Mhm.
Do
Mhm.
they want to use Adobe Edition? So,
Yeah.
but maybe for a good portion of them, that's enough. The Adobe podcast product will do everything that they want from an audio standpoint. And we will basically have the ability then to, um, for a better word, get them to episode 1.
Mhm.
And, I could have built an in-house recording platform, but who wants to spend a year doing that and then maintaining it? I don't want to build a Restream. I don't want to build a Riverside. I don't want to.
Right.
There's
It's
enough of these
expensive.
platforms out now. Yeah.
It's an investment in,
And resource
yeah,
a huge developer,
yeah,
and again, if the product is never going to be as good as a Restream or a StreamYard or a Riverside, it's never going to be as good.
right.
So the chances are when a podcaster is done with kind of getting their feet wet, they're going to make a decision, move somewhere else. So my strategy was basically let's get them enough time to get started. And we talked to Adobe about this and was very open. Says not everyone's going to convert to a paid customer, but some will. And really, the only skin off Adobe's back is they gave the podcasters an extra 30 days free, because everyone gets at least 30 days free if you go to Adobe Direct. So,
Yeah. And what's interesting about Adobe doing this with you is the fact that Adobe has video tools too. Um, and I guess it's just kind of an obvious question. Are they going to get into the video side of doing this too? Because it feels like, I mean, if you're going to do something like what we're doing right here, you might as
right.
well have the ability to see the other person that you're doing the show with, right? And it feels like that's the long-term direction of where this is going. It's not so much maybe to create videos, but to at least see the other person that you're talking to,
Their bread
as a
and
bare
butter
minimum.
is,
Right.
their bread and butter is Adobe software, the whole breadth of
Right.
software.
Yeah, but I don't believe that
And
any of their software does what we're talking about right now, where
no, no.
it
Well,
basically
it does,
enables a video call to
yeah.
record. Right.
But Adobe Podcast does this without video.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So will they make the jump? I don't know.
They certainly could
But
afford to invest in it if they wanted to
oh, they
compete,
could.
or they would buy somebody. But
Yeah, maybe they buy Riverside. Who knows?
I think
S-
I think Riverside has been moving closer and closer to a deal with Spotify for
Well,
years now.
that's the reason why I think they stopped the integration with us,
Hmm.
because we had, our goal was to get done with Riverside, get done editing, and send the video just like people from Descript can do right to Blueberry. There's a one-click submit to Blueberry on Descript, and there isn't
Yeah.
on Riverside. We did the work on our side, and they didn't do the work on their side.
Yeah.
So, and about that time, they got their money, and then they announced their Spotify thing. So once again, you know,
Yeah.
so I don't know. For me, what I'm really, it should become obvious is I'm filling holes. If I've got holes at Blueberry
Yeah.
of stuff that's through
I
the
think you
entire
should be.
production process, I'm
Exactly.
filling
And
filling holes.
you're also adding AI capabilities too, which
Right,
increasingly
right.
people are wanting. And it's so hard to predict exactly how the AI thing is going to roll into podcasting and really change podcasting. I mean, it's been moving that direction for a while, but I just get a sense that very soon things are going to go, and you've been warning about this for a while too. I've been hearing you on your tech show, your geek news show, for a long time. This coming wave of AI may come in and
Yeah.
impact things in a way that we just can't even comprehend right now.
Well, one thing is for sure, we're tracking what tools people are using
Hmm.
at Blueberry,
Yeah.
and we predicted before we launched the product that people wouldn't use the pre-production tools as much as they use the
Post
post-production.
production, right? Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
probably on a scale of 4 to 1. In other words, for every 4 uses of, there's people that use it for the full breadth, and 1 in 4 basically use its entire all of the entire tool offering,
Mhm.
where 3 and 4 don't use pre-production, but they use all the post-production stuff. And that was kind of aligned with what we thought the usage would be in the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, and those that are using the pre-production tools almost to a show are interview shows. So they're using the tool to put in the guest bio, links to guest content, their LinkedIn page, and then basically by using the API that we're using and how it's improved here, we're able to basically come up with questions for the guest. Um, and it just helps them a little bit with their, gives them a starting point.
Right.
It's not by far a complete solution because we only come up with 10 questions.
Yeah, did you write,
So we'll see how the
yeah, did you write any custom prompts that have form fields that can be filled in to help people generate consistent
the yes, the prompts have
output?
already
Okay,
been pre-written
that's right. Okay.
for yeah. They do, and and again, from a pre-production standpoint, you need
Mhm.
to tell us, okay, give us a description of what this episode is about. What is the
Yeah.
goal? And if people actually fill in all that data, then the system uses that data in part of the prompt that we've written. As an
Does it
example, they
also
link to the
does it also analyze the audio you upload to do the same thing?
so once you upload the audio, we create a transcript.
Right.
And then from the transcript, all our prompts are coming up with a title, coming up with a summary, come up with bullet points,
Yep.
help you with the art and the chapter files. The weakest part of the whole system at this point is the episode art generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been
Those
actually working on that this week.
right. Yeah,
I
is it
can get a
a
much better
oh, go Todd. Finish.
I can get a better output out of Chat GPT than I can out of our prompting system. It's just there's something through the API that they have not. I don't think it's at the same revision level of model, so that's why we're just not getting as. And it's expensive. That's the most expensive. The cost of creating 2 images for episode art is the same price of doing everything else we do with the tool.
Mm,
All the other
yeah.
prompts that we do. So the image generation is expensive.
And I've also noticed that because the image generation tends to be error filled, people
Yeah.
make multiple requests trying to correct it, which
And we
only
only
adds
let
up the
them do
costs. Right.
we only let them do 2, so we don't let them do more than 2 on a production, and we limit it per month too on the number of images, just because if I didn't, I would lose money.
That gets back to the quality of the output, right?
Yeah,
If the quality of the output matches what the podcaster is looking for, then there's no need to generate a second one or a
right,
third one,
right,
right?
right. So, that's something we have to continue to work on is and the episode art, it's important,
It is.
but, you know, it's better than nothing at this point. And, but again, there's sometimes I go, sad. That's that even in our own system, I'm like, well, that was crap. And I go back and run the
Don't
same
like
prompt.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I run the same prompt on Chat GBT. So again, it'll get better over time. But
Yeah, I
I don't
saw
know.
that chat GPT was down just
Yeah,
the last
it was
hour.
down this evening. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just released Sora. So I'm sure they're just getting hammered. So I don't know.
So I went over and
And
used Grok to create the episode description for this show tonight
oh, you
because
you
chat
did. That's what you
ch-
use as Grok.
yeah, chat GPT wasn't available, so I thought, go over and use the X Grok and see what the output comes from that. It was usable. So
Yeah. You try Claude. I like Claude. Claude is better actually in summarizing right now than ChatGPT is.
hmm, yeah, I haven't
So
tried Claude. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
pay
not a
for
big
both.
fan of the Gemini platform. I'm just having a hard time.
No, I'm not having good. I don't use Google's products at all.
Yeah.
So as far as AI stuff goes,
Yeah, and I don't know why that is. I mean, have they just done a poor job of kind of marketing that?
I
I
think
don't know.
they're behind. They'll catch up, but they're behind.
That's interesting that they're behind.
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't know that they were behind. I kept hearing rumors that they were only behind because they haven't had the confidence to release their multiple ahead generations of their AI or something. But maybe that was a lie. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So you announced the Podcast Hall of Fame inductees.
Yes, we did. Yes. So there's 11 of them, Todd. So I added
Yes, there is.
one more. So we went from
Because of
8
a
last year to 11 this year. So that's a
because of
jump.
a three-way tie, right? Is that
Four-way.
why?
It was a four-way
Four-way.
tie.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Well, that's
Yeah.
saying something when four of the folks got equal number of votes.
Yeah, I couldn't leave off one of those 4. It
Right, right.
didn't make sense for me to do that. I wasn't gonna put my thumb on the scale of who I wanted to take
Right.
that
Just and there's
to
a
be
that's
dropped from the
amazing.
4th spot. Right.
It's amazing it came that close with four of the candidates getting equal votes. It tells you something.
I don't know what it tells me, but it tells me something. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see James was complaining that there's no outside the US inductees, but
Yeah, and I was on the Pod News Weekly podcast earlier today, clarifying that situation, and it's definitely more of a challenge organizationally for the the Podcast Hall of Fame because I mean all the board members except for one are U.S. folks. All the past inductees are U.S. folks, and those are the people that vote. So
right.
the challenge that I have is expanding the board from other parts of the world, bring expertise into the kind of organizing and voting community, and expand the number of people that vote
Yeah.
prior to every election that has expertise from various parts of the world that can weight that to be weighted um, to give everybody a fair shot because right I mean right now it's very weighted towards being somewhat of an awareness and popularity vote to some degree. I mean, though I did in the ballot, I did put a description of this
Yeah.
person's contributions and tried to do that. I could probably do a better job of that, but I just don't know that people are going to spend a lot of time reading a multi-paragraph
I I
description.
I actually did
You did?
because
Okay.
yeah, because there was some people I was not aware of.
Yeah, well,
And I'm like,
that's the challenge, right?
yeah.
Is that if most of the people are US based and US knowledge people that are doing the voting, those
Mhm.
people are gonna gravitate to people that they have heard of before or
Yeah.
have some, knowledge of, right, to vote for.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna expand this internationally, I've gotta have a voting base that has, some less I not so much less, but just more complete coverage of podcasters outside of the US. I'm not exactly sure how to come up with a formula that makes it entirely fair because it may not be fair for some period of time, unfortunately. But I can also keep building it out, right? And to
Yeah.
add people from various parts of the world that can get in there and vote. And the other challenge that I have is actually getting everybody that's supposed to vote to actually vote.
Right. Right.
So that's the next level tier. So there's a lot of stuff to work on, and Todd, you can fully appreciate it. I mean, you're trying to hold, big awards yourself, and voting is a challenge, there's no question. Right.
Yeah. I'm glad I don't I'm glad I've simplified the podcast awards to the way I
Yeah,
have, to be honest
yeah,
with you.
yeah.
Because yeah, I'm just it's a but it's what's amazing to me. I never review or reveal the vote totals. But the delta between on many categories between the winner and is always single digits.
That's interesting, yeah.
It's always very, very close because what we've done is we make sure, sure, some shows are going to get, 100,000 nominations.
Right.
Well, when I allow 20,000 people to come back in and do the second round of voting,
Hmm.
if I was to I would, if I did not weigh and I put a thumb on the voting scale. So
Right.
basically, what we do is we know who every person has originally nominated. We can
Hmm.
see, and
Hmm.
then what we do is we make sure that the voting pool is even, aka the show that got 100,000 votes doesn't have a disproportionate number of people in the final round to vote.
Right.
Otherwise, it would make no sense whatsoever to have a second round.
Right.
So in the end, the voting pool, matter of fact, 75% of it probably doesn't even have, there might not be someone they even nominated, or maybe just one. So we try to make sure that the final voting pool is even from a weighting standpoint.
Hmm.
And it's a pain in the ass to sort that out.
Yeah.
But I have a third party do it, and they have some sort of machine learning they've done to be able to sort, because the people that nominate are the ones that end up doing the final vote. So we have 20,500 people that participate, and we allow 500 of the participating podcasts to vote too. And
Hmm.
believe it or not, most of the participating podcasts don't vote. That's the funny thing. We invite 500 of them to vote. I get like maybe 20% come in and do the final vote. But I have a minimum number. This is another thing I do.
Hmm.
I want to have at least 18,000 people that have voted for at
Yeah.
least 3 shows.
Hmm.
So usually in that 1 month of voting period, if I look like I'm behind, I add another 5,000 voters to the
Oh,
pool to
so
get
you can hit your
to
number, right?
hit my number.
Hmm.
Um, and then, so in the end, it, it basically all evens out, and that's why the vote deltas are so narrow. And I always tell people making the slate is the important thing.
Right. Yeah.
If you make the slate, then your value of being in the slate that's the value. Winning
Hmm.
is great, but the
Hmm.
value is being in the slate for the following year and on the
Right.
website with the link to their. But that's a whole nother story about people knowing.
Well, and you're different too because you're doing kind of a public vote, which is different
Yeah,
than
public. Yeah.
what what
But this is
what
all
I'm doing.
internal.
Right.
With how many people now? 30 some or whatever the number is.
Well, I think with the new inductees, I believe it's 51 people now going
Oh,
forward. So it's a good number of folks.
yeah.
And I just got word on my master of ceremonies, so
Oh,
I'm going to be announcing that here in the next couple of days here. So
big name or
no,
yeah.
I mean, he's got a very popular podcast.
Oh, okay.
So it's just and he lives in the Florida market area, so he was
Oh,
close.
okay.
And I've known him for a long time, so I've been a guest on his show before and that kind of stuff. So I'm 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 very familiar with him, and he's a terrific guy. He's a former
Yeah.
CEO of companies and stuff, so he's very very good. But it's just yeah I wanted I know last year we had Dr. Drew. I kind of set high expectations with who we had last year that would probably be hard to match again. But
Right.
it's just a matter of finding somebody with integrity in there and really cares about being a podcaster and really understands the grind of it to get up there and kind of be the
Yeah.
master of ceremonies for it. So I'm really
And
happy about that.
financially, it's a lot cheaper than Dr. Drew.
Yeah, that's definitely another bonus, right? Yeah. So yeah. So the event is actually January 17th at Podfest Expo. So if you're not
Okay.
familiar with it, actually, if you want to read more about the Hall of Fame, just go to podcasthall.com. And that website has all of the inductees, pictures and description of their background, and that's on the Hall of Fame news kind of navigational link on the upper right hand corner of the
Yeah.
of the website. But if you scroll down, you can see last year's ceremony, and then if you want to get tickets, if you want to attend in person, there's actually a sign up page that's in the tab ceremony to actually get a ticket to be there in person if you want to. But the whole event is going to be recorded, and then it's going to be put out on YouTube and some of the other social platforms on January 20th is the plan for that.
Mm. So
So
no live, just recorded.
we're not going to attempt live this year. So
Okay.
that is it is a risk that the event Podfest wasn't willing to take, and
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. I think
Yeah.
it actually will probably produce a better product. It'll
Yep.
probably have a secondary time to promote it and things like that. So I'm hopeful that'll work out good. And so yeah, if you want to sign up and be there in person, we would love to have you. And if you happen to be going to Podfest, it's the ticket price is $49.
Okay.
So just to let everybody know. So
So, I'm looking at this list.
of
Um,
of all the inductees, yeah,
inductees. The one I did not know was George Harab,
yeah,
but he also was known for another show than what you have in the bio. It was a
yeah,
science
I have it.
show.
Yeah. I'm just drawing a blank on it.
Yeah, me
What it
too.
is right now? Yeah.
But he won his category in the podcast awards for many years. And he basically, I think he is part of our. Well, basically, when shows win a category 5 times, they're no longer eligible to win a
Oh,
category
really?
anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, and we named
Yeah,
the
he seems like
category
a
after him.
really great guy. So it'd be,
Oh, he's
I mean, yeah, he's going to be there in person. So
huge show.
actually
Yeah.
10 out of the 11 folks that are going to be inducted will be there in
Wow.
person is the current path that I've been told. So it's,
And, and you
yeah,
look at Lance Anderson that's on that list. Oh my God, absolute pioneer
I know.
in the
Yeah.
space. And most people say, "Who's Lance Anderson?"
Yeah.
Um, again, these are some folks that have been around a while. Chris Christensen, again, another
Oh, he's a
Lou Mangello.
total, total
I mean,
pioneer. Right.
yeah, absolutely. Of course, Jessica as well.
With the She
So
podcasts. Right.
yeah, and it's this whole list. Now, I was not familiar with. Is it Twilla? How do you pronounce her name?
Twilio. Yeah.
Yeah, I was not familiar with her at all.
Hmm.
And but after reading her bio, um, yeah, I mean, again, Dave Mansudo, and most things. Well, who is Dave Mansudo? Well, to
Right.
be honest with you, podcasting probably would not have gained the speed it had not him and a few other folks over, and he was one of the founders of Libsyn,
Yeah.
co-founder.
Well, he was really the ringleader of the group, actually.
Absolutely.
Which
Of
is,
that rag those
yeah,
early
the
days.
yeah, exactly. There's a whole story behind that, and hopefully I can get Dave to share some of that on stage. So yeah,
So, he is I ran into Dave at Podcast Movement. He was at the event, and we got caught up, and he's got big hair these days.
no, actually, he got his haircut.
Really?
If you go to the Hall of Fame website page and go to the inductees page, I I've uploaded a new picture of him, and he's all
Di-
clean cut now.
what? Well, he wasn't clean cut when I saw him
I
at
know he
Podcast
wasn't. Yeah.
Movement. He was looking pretty hippie.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. I had that conversation with him because he did a call with me, and it was like, okay,
who's this
Dave,
person?
this is your public picture, but yet I did a call with you, and you look like this. It's kind of not going to make sense to people. You're going to walk in the room and you're going to say, "Who is this guy?"
Right. Oh, so his his headshot he sent you is looks neat and trim, but is he
Right.
still looking pretty bushy?
No, not at all. No, his hair's
Okay.
short and he's cut his beard off.
Wow.
He doesn't have it at
Holy
all. So,
cow.
yeah, it's just
I
like
mean,
his profile
he had a
picture on the website.
he
Yeah.
had a mountain man,
I know he did.
beard,
Yeah.
Um,
And like a stitched hat, that kind of stuff,
yeah.
right?
And if you look, and then Maria Thomas, I was
Oh,
familiar with
she's a
her.
trailblazer, a real
Yeah.
trailblazer in this medium. Yeah.
And then of course Chris from Podfest, Chris Cremosis, and of course Tim Street. My God,
Yeah.
this
Early,
guy,
early video podcaster.
unbelievable,
Yep.
and of course Tom Webster's in that list too. So
Yeah.
it's a great lineup, fantastic,
Oh, I agree
at
with
least
you.
in my opinion.
I agree with you. I think it's as good
But
as I could have hoped for. What was also interesting about it, Todd, is that there's a lot of big names that I had on my list, right? People that are very well known,
very
huge
famous.
shows, celebrities,
Yeah.
huge shows, but these are the folks that got the votes.
So we should also recognize, how are we going to handle in the years forward people that decline to be inducted? Because we've had a couple of those.
We've had 3.
And how do we, because people are going to say, well, how come he isn't? Or how come she isn't? How do we,
And I don't
do
want
they
to
have to
embarrass them
publicly?
either. I don't want to embarrass
No.
them either. Or, I mean, I don't know that they would be embarrassed. Actually, I just don't want to mention them because people will
Yeah.
get a negative impression about it. I'm not sure that's fair.
And they decline for
Just personal reasons.
personal reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, great list.
Yeah.
But Rob, what is what's your predictions for 2025?
Oh,
Oh,
well,
I had a comment that came in YouTube said, David says, I was thinking of swapping to Riverside once my current StreamYard plan ends. Should I worry about the potential deal with Spotify? I think you never know. And luckily, there's alternatives. Riverside isn't the only game in town.
right.
So, if you want to have a quality recording and you're not using, like when I'm in the studio in Michigan, I will not use Riverside because I've got the TriCaster and I get a master recording that's, really a master, 40 gig master video file. I think you just have to pick one that you like. And the reason we've switched to this is because I'm perfectly happy with Restream, but I just can't get a good local recording. There's no opportunity to.
Well, to give a little bit of background about what's going on with StreamYard with that, I mean, they did have a audio outage this past week where
Really?
they had a half of a day where audio just wasn't getting captured in the platform. So they fixed that. So it's all corrected now, but they did announce they were pulling back the consolidated or combined local recordings export, right? So currently, in order to get local recordings out, you have to download the separate tracks, right?
And
In
it's still,
in video form, and then you have to merge them together. Now they have said that they're going to bring it back, but they're going to have to re-engineer it, right? So it's much more efficient. Now, my experience with it was that it could take. So let's say you did an hour and a half recording. So you did a live stream and it went for an hour and a half. It could take close to 2 hours to export it.
wow.
So, which is, that's even after it was uploaded, processed.
Because their server wasn't downloading so
I don't
fast.
know what the technical reason was, but it took forever to get that file out of there. And that was one of the reasons when we were using StreamYard for this show that it took me so long to get you the file.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
because it had to do it like overnight, because I wasn't going to sit there in front of my computer for 2 hours
Yeah,
waiting
you
for
wait
it.
for it.
So
So
hopefully they'll get that fixed. And it looks like what Riverside is doing here is they're really optimized for uploading while we're doing the show.
yeah.
So I'm at 99% here,
Me
where
too.
with StreamYard, you could look after you've done the show and it would be like at 20% or something like that, even on the upload side. So everything was just a lot slower, right? So they pulled the plug on it, and so now they're re-architecting it, and hopefully they'll be able to roll it back again. But
So, Rob, I'm suspecting because there's no local recording. Don't think that's going on here
oh,
now.
oh, you don't think it is?
I don't. I'll find out when I'm done. But they have an editor that combines your and I recording. So maybe it's gonna be the same thing the StreamYard's doing, but it's working. So
Okay.
I'll see how the process
Oh,
goes.
okay. So it's capturing separate files, but it doesn't create necessarily a combined file until you do that in the editing tools. Is that what
I
you're
don't
saying?
know. We'll find out. I
Okay.
don't know at this point. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Because someone said that Facebook was being funky. So that's exactly why I want two masters. Even if I have to use their editor, it'll be better than because the key is getting the quality output. So
Yeah, I did
um,
a show earlier earlier today on Squadcast. So
mm,
it wasn't my show; it was someone else's show. I was being a guest on, and it seemed to work pretty good. So I
did
just
they have? Was
had
it uploading at the same time that you were recording? Same deal.
I didn't actually actually know. Actually, it's the tool that the Pod News Weekly
Uh,
um, Sam uses. So I was on that show
okay.
today. So yeah, so there's lots of choices out there, and I've heard of a couple other companies that are in the wings out there that are maybe coming,
Mm,
that could give people more choices in this area. But it just does seem like a hot area. It's continuing to be a
yeah.
hot area. But Todd, if you wanted to move into talking a little bit more
Yeah. Yeah.
about the the predictions for 2025, or we can hold off on that and do a whole show just on that, if you want to.
Well, maybe we could talk about other people's predictions.
Yes, okay. Which is what's in the notes, right?
And
So,
by the way, my comment about Dave Weiner last week got
yeah, it did.
some
I'm just glad I didn't say it. Right. I mean,
wha-
I don't disagree with what you said, Todd, but I just, I've had so many run-ins with Dave Weiner myself. I don't want to start a new one.
now Dave didn't hasn't said nothing to me.
Well, he probably didn't see it, so would be my
Uh,
guess.
you know, but I am
Because he's over on Blue Sky.
yeah, exactly. So my opinion still stands
Yeah.
because he made some ridiculous statement this week about it's insidious what podcasting 0.20 is doing. He said it
Oh,
was
yeah, yeah.
insidious.
He's not going to endorse it ever unless they change the name. I think
It's
that's what he said.
insidious.
Right.
I'm like, it's still open, Dave. It's all being run by guys that are like hardcore open.
Well, he probably thinks it conflicts with the nameology of the podcast RSS 2.0 spec, right?
So what do we want, what does he want us to call it? Advancing podcasting in
3.0,
our
Todd,
huh? Oh my god.
or
Oh,
2.91.
maybe because he's pissed off because he's the RSS 2.0
Right, exactly. Yeah.
and he doesn't like podcast. So we had to call it podcasting 3.0.
3.0,
Whatever.
and he'll
Yeah,
probably approve it if he's able to create a new namespace,
yeah.
which
So
they did, but he wants to be the one to do it.
so
Right.
today's the day, Rob. As of well, your time, in about 3 or 4 hours, the Chartable redirect goes away.
Oh, I thought it was
And
the aliens were gonna land, so
well, we basically put out as long as people have updated PowerPress
right.
and all of our dashboard customers, the redirect from Blueberry are all gone. I was curious who I got an email from. I got an email from I won't say who, but
Mhm.
a very, very prominent company in the podcasting space, and they said, "Hey, are you guys gonna programmatically remove Chartable's redirect?" We said, "Yes, we are." And we did that on Monday.
Isn't
Um,
there some risk in doing that, that you're gonna get a huge amount of re-downloads?
I don't think so.
Okay, so
We're not changing the source media file. We'll see.
yeah, so
We'll see.
the GUID's not changing, so it
No, the
shouldn't.
GUID's not changing. We're just pulling the redirect out of the.
Mhm.
And if the apps don't, if the apps aren't equipped, depends on what triggers the apps. It's up to the apps to behave.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's potentially 31,000. Well, I don't know how many we had total.
Yeah, I think that there
But
were 31,000 that were utilizing it, right?
yeah.
It's a big chunk.
So,
It's a big chunk.
and it just shows you, and this is one of the reasons why for years we did not really endorse some redirects. As a matter of fact, in our system, when you add a redirect, we give this big warning
Right. There's some risk
that
there.
basically
Right.
says we are not responsible if this redirect provider goes down.
Right, or they have
You know,
a router outage or something. Yeah,
yeah.
there's risk.
We've had failover plans since 2006.
Mhm.
So because we've been running a redirect since 2006, so we know the ripple effect of what happens when a redirect server goes down.
Mhm.
So we have a backup to a backup. We've went to the second tier before where the main redirect server went down, and we have a 7 seconds is our transfer time.
Yeah,
So if that redirect server goes down,
it's
so within 7 seconds, the other redirect server picks up,
yeah,
and
it's
then if
really
that
really
server,
mostly concerning around latency, right? So once you stack all these up into latency, then that can trigger
well, it's not
things.
necessarily a latency issue. It's if I can't serve that redirect and send that request on,
Right.
that
And
media
within
file is
some
not going
period
to
of
load.
time, right, then it fails. Right.
Well, when the server fails, and we're watching that server every 5 seconds, we're making sure it's working.
Mhm. Mhm.
If it hits 5 seconds and says it's not here anymore,
Right.
2 seconds later, the other machine takes over.
Okay, so there's a fall.
Yeah, there's a
There's a ranking
fallover,
fall
right?
kind of
So because
request
if that
process.
and we go to that machine, and we don't automatically go back to machine one. Our phones start ringing and text messages, and so you
Mhm.
get that at 2 o'clock in the morning, and so that machine takes over. Then I've got one left in another data center that's
Mhm.
sitting there just idling. So if machine number two falls over, I've never had to go to machine number three, thank God. But
Oh,
I pay for
yeah.
that stupid thing every month
Just in case. Yes.
just in case. And they're all in different data centers because there are data center outages. So, I don't put two in the same data center. That would be stupid
Mhm.
because they immediately fail one, fail two, fail three.
Yeah.
So if we get to three data center failures in completely different regions, there's something bigger happening, and we won't be so much put to blame. There's some
Yeah.
other big internet thing going on. So we see it all the time. We see who, because if we're first, we see all the time other sites go down. People just don't
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah.
So we have big warning. But anyway, everyone that hasn't updated their chartable redirect are going to be dead.
Well, Todd, I think we're
Uh,
we're running out of time to spend too much time on
yeah.
predictions.
There
So,
was a few things that were mentioned that you had here in the,
yeah.
um, of course,
Yeah, it's kind of centered a little bit about
yeah,
what's happening with video, right? And
yeah,
how that plays out. Even involves Brian Barletta from Sounds Profitable.
yeah.
Tom Webster has been commenting about this,
So
and
the Brian comment is interesting. So go in. We have time to talk about what Brian said. What did
okay,
Brian?
okay. So the context of this is that you know, kind of in the big picture, there's some talk around um, summer of 2025. are we going to see companies that went all in on video
Yeah.
start laying people off because it didn't convert right, or it didn't
Yep.
generate enough revenue to justify the investment? And there was comments back and forth between, with James Cridlin being on the media roundtable episode, talking about what's happening with the video stuff and
Yeah.
Spotify and stuff. And it's the same thing that we talked about last week, that the just the weird stuff that's going on with video and how it's changing the medium. But Brian basically has written a article around kind of similar topics here, but saying that he says, and he points out, firstly, if you upload video to Spotify, then essentially you're replacing the audio totally.
Yep.
So, and that's what we talked about last week to some degree, and that's what, Todd, you've said that
Yeah.
you,
Today.
yeah, you weren't fully grasping the scope of this, and
Yep.
it basically replaces the RSS feed. Now, I guess that there is some questions about some of the details around this that are yet to be clarified, and Brian doesn't really clarify some of the loose ends here, of exactly how that is triggered, right? What you have to
Hmm.
do to actually trigger that. The impression I got was is that when you create an account, somehow there's a linkage made between you as a podcaster and existing feeds that you have in the Spotify infrastructure,
Yep.
and links them together somehow. And I don't know how you avoid that is my bigger question.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, and what Brian's concern was is that this is, if this happens, so you basically upload a video to Spotify and you have a pass through relationship through your podcast host into Spotify, that video episode will replace your RSS audio file with the audio that comes out of the video, right?
Hmm.
And if that happens, it kills any kind of programmatic advertising you have built into your RSS based audio file. And all that goes away, right? So you basically have lost your ability to monetize your audio podcast in Spotify. And then it all lives in the Spotify world, which is what Spotify has always wanted to do anyway, was
That's right.
to cache and rehost every media file that's uploaded to them, just like YouTube has
Yep.
done. And what's interesting is what everybody just accepts that that's what YouTube does. But people have this expectation around Spotify because of a historical orientation there of expectation that were set by you and I, Todd, pushing back on Spotify, saying you're not going to have our content unless it's passed through.
Right.
So there's a lesson to be learned here, right? And if we fall over too easily, then guess what? They get what they want. And we've lost control of our ability to monetize our show through a central host, right? So,
And I had a little bit of a discussion with James on Mastodon,
yeah, I
and
saw that. Yeah,
and my essence was, listen, people are using pre-rolls on Blueberry
yeah,
for many different things, announcing events,
yeah.
announcing a special guest,
It's just
announcing an
content.
episode.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
right.
it basically saying, hey, if you're listening down, if you're listening to episode 25, by the way, episode number 1, I've got X guest right now. Make sure
Yeah.
you're subscribed or whatever. Or we're having t-shirt sales or whatever it may be.
Or I have a live event in
Something,
LA on
yeah.
the 16th of,
And
yeah,
we
right.
have a huge number of shows that are using that feature alone.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
they're not doing any advertising. They're doing their own advertising for their own show.
yeah,
So essentially, my point was everyone on Spotify will never hear those pre-rolls if you go and do this video thing. So that's why I still say have 2 listings. It's worked for this show. We've had 2 listings from the beginning. We have a new
yeah,
media show audio, new media show video,
right.
and we get, I think this split is 80-20 or something like that.
Yeah,
80% audio, 20% video.
yeah,
Why? Because this is the way we've done it for 15 years or however long we've been doing this show.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so when they say, "Oh, you're going to diminish your audience." No, you're not.
Well, you may actually, based on, Yeah, I had Glenn Rubenstein on my podcast tip show many months ago, and we talked about this because he was working with clients that were doing exactly what we're talking about right now. They were uploading a video
Uh,
and didn't realize that it was replacing their RSS feed
yeah, yeah, and
audio
then
and their overall numbers. And we talked about on the show their overall numbers dropped.
right, and
Right.
they lost money.
Right, so their audio, which got converted from the video
Right.
file to replace the RSS-based audio, had lower numbers than the RSS-based audio that was going into the platform through the podcast host.
And another thing Spotify's done in the past, sometimes they pick winners and losers. They have different agreements
You
with
can put the thumb
different
on the scale, is that what you're saying to some
well,
degree?
no, they have different agreements with different vendors. So some
Okay.
people, they will I'm not saying they do, but my prediction is that some people probably get their programmatic and audio still the way it is, and the audio doesn't step on it. I would bet you there's a class of shows that are not impacted by this, but I think they would have to have a special agreement with Spotify.
Yeah, I think that the thing that we talked about last week was, so let's say you're able to successfully preserve your RSS-based
Right.
episodes in Spotify, and then
Yep.
you want to upload a video file to that. Is there a way that you can do that where Spotify won't realize that audio from the video you just upload shouldn't go over and replace your RSS based audio feed? And
He
that's the question that I don't have an answer to. Is there a way of doing that, or is the only outcome here is that you create two separate audio versions in Spotify? One that's not linked up with the RSS feed, one that's linked up with the video file. And I think James even said that actually, technically, what's happening is that the audio is just playing
Yeah, yeah, from the
without the
video.
video, is what they're doing. It's
Right.
not like they're extracting a
Yeah.
difference. It's the same video file that's playing. It's just being played in an audio experience without the video. I
I
know
love
that's
Dave
that's a
Jackson.
little confusing to say, but I I can
I love
visualize
Dave.
how that would work.
Yeah, I love Dave Jackson. He says Spotify laid off 17% of its workforce in 2023 while reportedly paying artists or the labels just 0.003 cents per stream. So 3/10 of a penny per stream in 2024. The company hit record profits while its CEO's net worth jumped to 7 billion. Don't you think it's time to put a wrap on corporate greed and exploitation? And he goes on to say, from a musician friend of mine, remember this as we sit and wait and see how many crumbs we'll make when we power Spotify's new video program. Please, sir, can I have some more, please? You can't spend exposure at the grocery store.
Well, that's always been the currency that these platforms have traded on, is your value for giving us your content for free is we give you the opportunity to reach people, right? And get audience, and everybody's clamored to get that, right?
Yeah. So, what was this thread that John McDermott, he was responding to some stuff that we talked about here, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, he listens to the Media Roundtable. He listens to James Cridlin and his Pod Weekly, and he just caught up with the last two episodes of our show, and he's being a little snarky about kind of the whole situation around video, right, and where
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
going, and and I think it's he's sparked some interesting conversations about this that are bringing to the fore. I think at times he's not fully understanding what's entirely going on sometimes in our discussions,
Hey,
and that and that's okay. I mean, I think he's
well,
got
he
some
said
fun perspectives, right?
Todd Cochrane on the new media show had a lot to say about video, and all I can say is preach. Todd is
Right.
right. Listen to the episode below and know what Todd is right. Todd is right. Todd is right. Thanks, John. I think you're perfectly right too.
Yeah, and I think I wrote a comment on Facebook saying, "Well, John, why don't you tell me exactly what Todd was right about?"
So,
Yeah. So we had some
but it
fun with that.
but it does, and we're in the closing moments here. It does boil back to we have to remember Do what you want to do, ladies and gentlemen. Audio still, in my opinion, is, we're here to stay.
Right.
And, I know we've lost some people because we're talking so much about video. But
Well,
it's a
not
real
so much
comment.
today, but yeah,
Yeah, the commentary has to be had.
it does.
Um, and
It's just too juicy to pass up. I mean, I just can't.
in Rob, it hasn't helped that you've dove in for a penny. You're in for a penny and for a pound here. For
Well, I got to play both
um,
sides of the issue. Don't I
yeah, yeah,
mean,
you do.
that's the element.
So
So I'm the protagonist of sorts.
so I had a coffee and I got halfway through my Coke here on the show
Oh my
today.
gosh! So you're operating on caffeine here, huh?
I'm operating on 3 hours of sleep. Um,
Okay.
Yesterday, I had to get up a little early to get some stuff done with my visa and some other stuff going on. So I had I had a 20-hour day yesterday, and then I only slept for 3 hours. So
So
yeah,
one last little comment about what John posted as part of this thread that you're referring to here is that
yeah,
he said that you were right, and James agreed with you too. And I have a hard time disagreeing with you. It's not like I disagreed with you on this particular point, but it was more about how we're seeing these big budget productions, right?
yeah,
That are
yeah,
going
yeah,
on YouTube. They have like 25, 50, 60 people working on it. And they so happen to have a audio version in Apple Podcasts, and all of a sudden they're a
yeah,
podcast, right? And that's been going on with mainstream media for a decade now, right? Where they have the big studios and producers and executive producers and cameramen and all sorts of stuff, right? That run those. And I think the thing that's happened here and is that those folks are not in the mainstream media studios as much, and they're doing it more from
yeah.
their homes or
You know,
from
you know,
a office building
from a
somewhere.
studio, yeah,
Right.
from an office building,
Right. Right.
studio, yeah. But what's funny though, I remember in the early days of doing video,
Mhm.
I used to take a picture of my studio, and people are like, "Oh my god, mission control! You got all those monitors, you got that switcher, you're running a
Right.
professional studio."
Right.
And I'm thinking, "Yeah, I'm a one man show.
Right.
I'm one man
It
pushing the button,
Yeah,
watching the
exactly.
chat, making sure the camera's focused. I'm doing it all." And so you see some of these guys on YouTube that are doing like I do. I have this great setup. I got a great background.
Mhm.
And I assume they're sitting there pushing a button.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. When I saw their back end operation, I said that looks like Fox. Looks like Fox News. It
Yeah.
looks like the what you see in a big truck at the Super Bowl. You
Well,
know,
I mean, some of them are like that. There's other ones that are using like maybe 4 or 5 different cameras,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they're
and have
they're
4 or 5
switching
people in
between
their
them
back.
and right.
They have a green room and they have someone there doing makeup and, you know, there's no makeup happening in my place.
Well, I mean, Todd, I think, just like that new Roadcaster video that you have, is
Yeah,
capable of I guess
yeah,
up to 4 cameras, right? And you
yeah,
can switch them right there.
yeah,
So, that's like a $1,200 box,
yeah,
and anybody can get access to that kind of video switching tool that you can really do
yeah.
productions just like you see with those really big shows. You don't have to have 50 people working on it.
And if I would probably, knowing what I've learned about that box, I'd probably not have bought it.
Well, because it's only the reason I don't wanna buy it is because it's only 1080.
Oh, I ain't worried about that. Everything goes out for podcasting when me goes out at 720
I know,
anyway.
but that's gonna be changing, Todd. So you look out a
Yeah,
couple of years and everything's gonna be at minimum 4K. I mean,
well,
even the cameras now that you can get these portable cameras, like
Rob,
the
Rob,
are
they
actually heading towards 8K now.
they do not want to see you and I in 4K. Rob, I'm looking at you in 720p,
And
and
you don't wanna look at it any higher
no,
resolution, right?
no,
Is that what
because
you're
what's
saying?
going to happen is all of these wrinkles that are
Well,
already here.
Todd, okay, now we're going down the rabbit hole here. All these platforms have, appearance filters in them, you know that, right?
Oh my God! Well, we're not okay. I'm going to be I'm going
Well,
to
that's the inverse
gracefully.
of what you're talking about here, is right? Is that
Okay, so you're going to apply some filter to make yourself look 20 years younger than when
of
people meet
course
you in
that's what
person?
everybody's going to do. What do you
They're
mean?
going to say, "Shit, you're old." My God, you look
Everybody's
different.
doing it. They've been doing it on
Oh,
their iPhones for a decade now.
well,
Come on.
that's catfishing. We're not doing catfishing here. That's why we don't have faces for video.
Todd,
We're not
don't you
pretty.
want
We're
to
not pretty.
be relevant in your 70s and 80s? Be able to do
We're
podcasting when you're in your 70s or 80s?
and I will look 70 years old, and I'm not pretty like Adam
I know.
Curry.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, I'm not I don't have hair anymore. I do, but I trim it so that I don't look, I bald strip going down the middle and tried to do the old man flip over. Nope, and I'm not putting grease in my hair and coloring my hair, doing any of that. I'm not getting Botox, no. Why? That money is better spent on beer.
You're not going to get a rug on top?
Oh my God. No. No, thank you.
No thanks, huh? Okay.
Mm-mm. All right, we are long.
All
I'm gonna
right.
go back to bed for a couple of hours, so
So
this show's gonna be a little later.
so when are you back in Michigan again?
January 7th.
January 7th. Okay.
So I fly back the 7th. I'm actually back in the studio on the 8th.
Okay.
So we won't have a show that week.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, we are booked for doing a live new media show. It won't be live streamed unless we try and do it, Todd,
oh,
but it will be recorded at
at
Podfest.
podcast.
So
Okay.
on
What time slot did we get?
we got a
Last day, last hour?
no, actually it's Thursday the 16th
Oh,
at
wow.
3:30 p.m.
Are we gonna get a room or are we gonna be on a stage somewhere?
I'm not
Don't know.
sure yet on that one.
Okay. All right. So let's look at the calendar here. I'm good for a show next week. And
Okay.
then
Let's
things
let's
get
do
kind of
our full predictions
next
next
week.
next episode. Right.
Okay. And then a no show on Christmas, obviously.
Right.
And
Right.
we
Or did you
should be okay to do a show on no, the next show then is the first. So next week will be our last show for a couple of weeks, unless we do something early. But I'm on vacation the entire week of 23rd.
all right, let's
So we'll
just
figure something
shoot
out.
for the first then. Or the
The
second.
first is new.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It's
first I'm gonna be hungover, so maybe
I don't drink,
maybe
Todd, so I don't have that
okay,
issue.
well, if you wanna do actually, for me, the second actually, if you wanna do a show on the afternoon of New Year's Day, I can probably do that because it's actually gonna be the second for me. So, I'll be
Oh,
recovered.
you'll be we shall see. Yes.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here.
All right.
I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on X, at Geek News at geeknews.chat on Mastodon. Of course, at NMS Podcast for the show. Rob?
I'm on X as well at Rob Greenlee, like I've been there since 2007. And I'm also on YouTube at Rob Greenlee, on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I'm all of the normal regular social media platforms. So I'll just put it to you that way. And I also have a website, robgreenlee.com, and I do a show usually on Thursday nights called Podcast Tips. And so I've been talking about some deep diving topics on that show here lately, and so um, if you want to send us an email, you can certainly do that. Send to Rob Greenlee, and that's with two e's on the end at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and share any little tips that you have about what you're hearing in the podcasting space, and maybe we'll talk about it on the show.
And we did not get any boost today. So I guess you'll be boosting when you listen.
Well,
So we do appreciate those of you that are using a new modern podcast app.
Just to
at
just to
podcasting
let
stuff.
everybody know, if you have an Albi wallet, you're going to need to get in and
Convert
do
it.
something with that.
Yes.
Convert. I know I still need to do it too, to
Yeah.
transfer it
And
out.
I'm running my own node for but for Blueberry, we moved it into their hub. So 11,000 Satoshis a month. So that's the only drawback, which is not that much money, but with crypto at $108,000 now.
I was
Uh,
108 today. Wow.
yeah. Well, it went to 107. It's $100,800 was last night.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see it go up that high yet. But
Yeah. So anyway,
Okay.
great time to cash out crypto, but is it going to go to 200?
maybe
That's
not. Yeah. I
Man,
I don't
we'll
really see
see.
that there's much of an upper limit to where this can go. So
No, when the halving happens every 4 years, it can go even more
yeah,
nuts. So
I did a
I'm not
whole
super.
I did a whole episode with on my Trust Factor show with Gary Leland here
Mm,
here a few weeks ago,
I'm sure Gary's pretty happy right now. As
talking
much
about
for,
Bitcoin. Yeah, because he puts
yeah,
on a Bitcoin conference
yeah.
in the spring or summer timeframe.
I think to be honest with you, when my mom's happy with Bitcoin price, that's saying something, you know. Um, some people have done very, very well, especially
Yeah,
when you bought in at like 13 or 20,000
or
um,
lower.
or lower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Everyone, take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right, now what happens? All
Looks
right,
like
Rob Greenlee successfully uploaded.
yeah,
I am at 99%.
you're almost there.
So
Yeah.
that's a little pop up.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, I
tells
see
me,
it here.
oh, now it says view recordings. So
Does it
what is this?
does it give you the option to download it right away, or does it
Let
have to
me look.
process?
Upload, edit. Um, okay, let me